Hey everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, or good night depending on where you are, and welcome to my channel. So as you can see from the title, today I will be reviewing this brush set from Muse Beauty. So this brand is created by Jen from meejmuse, and this is actually the first product from her line called Muse Beauty. So if you want to know more about this line and this actual brush set from Jen, I will leave the link to her video down below where she explains about this brand and the brush collection. I've had this brush set for about 3 weeks and I've been using it on and off during that time. So I will just insert photos of what this looks like when I first got it. So I will be showing you the brushes one by one. Excuse them if they're a little dirty as I did use them today and I just spot cleaned them. I'll give you first, guys, an overall review of what I think of the brushes. So this collection is a 10-piece brush set. It has 5 face brushes, 4 eyeshadow brushes, and 1 concealer brush. So if you guys are concerned about animal cruelty and you're vegan, these brushes are good for you because they're all made out of synthetic bristles. All the bristles in this brush set are actually soft and none of them feel scratchy on the face. So the pros of these brushes, aside from being synthetic and being really soft, is they are actually really easy to clean. Like with these brushes, they are purely white. I don't really like using white bristled brushes because they have a tendency to get stained, but these washed out nicely both with soap and water and with just spot cleaning, and they don't stain. This brush looks stained because I just spot cleaned this. If you do wash this with soap and water, this will come out fairly white again. This is also good for beginners because this is a complete set. You have everything you need to create a look. Actually, the makeup I'm wearing right now, I used all these brushes and 2 extras to create this look. I only used the 2 extra brushes because that's my personal preference and you don't need those if you don't want to use them. If you watch Jen's announcement video, you will also know that this brush set was specifically created for someone with Jen's face shape and eye shape. So this is perfect for people with smaller eyes and a smaller face. It's actually also perfect to buy if you want to support meejmuse and her endeavor with her brand. I also want to mention, because some of the brushes are really small, they're perfect if you want to apply your makeup in a very specific way. So as for the cons, I couldn't really find a generic con about these brushes except for one. The cons that I'm gonna mention are because of personal preference. A generic con that these brushes have is that some of them actually shed. The brushes that shed are these 3. Now, for these 2 brushes, it honestly wasn't much of a surprise that they shed because these 2 are some of the thicker or more dense brushes that are in her collection. So I've had other brushes that are as dense as these or are a little bit more dense that they did shed after the first washing. I would also like to note that they only shed after the first washing and they didn't anymore after that. This brush actually surprised me that it shed because it's such a small brush and brushes like these generally don't shed, but it was only like 2 to 3 hairs and it never shed again after that. One personal con I do have about this is that they didn't have a fluffier blending eyeshadow brush, something that looks like this, and this kind of brush is the one I use when applying a transition color. Now, not everyone might find that as a con, that's why I said it's a personal con, but you can work around that. Another con about this is that the blush brush is really small, but as I said, this set is made for someone with a smaller face. So now I will be giving a more in-depth review brush by brush. So this set actually has 2 powder brushes. This is the 170 rolled powder brush and this is the 171 flat powder brush. Some people might find it excessive that she has 2 powder brushes, but honestly I don't mind because I use these two for separate things. So this is actually the powder brush I use when using loose powder or a pressed setting powder. You don't have to use it just for that. This is actually a good size for an all-over bronzer. Speaking of which, this rolled powder brush is actually what I use for bronzer. You'll actually see in the video that I applied with that. You could also use this for a sheer application of blush. You have to be careful because this brush is big. Both these brushes are good to remove powder after you baked, but personally I prefer brushes like these. This is 172 angled foundation brush. So this is one of those thick kabuki on a stick brushes. That's what they used to be called when these style of brushes first came out. These actually reminds me of a Sigma F84, I think. So this is actually good for powder, liquid, and cream foundation. And because it's angled, you could also use this to apply cream contour or even bronzer. This is actually really soft. I love using this to buff foundation on. Another angled brush. This is the 173 angled blush brush. So as you can see, this brush is really small. This is one of the brushes that bothered me a little bit because it took me a little bit longer to apply my blush because compared to my face, it's a lot smaller. So personally, this one, I would use this for a more specific contour or a highlight. But you could still use this for blush. I know there's a technique out there where you use two blushes and where you put a mid-tone or lighter shade blush all over and then a brighter blush on the apple of the cheeks. Now the next brush is one of my favorite brushes in the collection. This is the 174 Precise Contour Brush. Now I did say that I use the smaller angled blush brush as one of my contouring brushes because this tapered cut of a brush, I personally prefer this for highlighter or removing the bake from my under eye area. I have tried this for contour, but personal preference highlight. So honestly for me, because I don't use this brush for blush, these are interchangeable for highlight or contour. This brush, I actually want another one of these as something I can interchange or as a backup brush. Now on to the smaller brushes. First brush is the 175 concealer brush. I actually really like this brush. Some of you might say this is actually just a generic concealer brush, but I don't have a concealer brush like this. The difference with this with my other concealer brushes is the bristles are a lot longer than most, and this brush, because of the length, is a little fluffier. I don't know how else to explain it, but it is. So because of the way this is made, it actually applies my under eye concealer in a softer, more airbrush manner. You'll see in the demo video what I mean. I also did use a beauty blender because the corrector I used today was a little bit drier than most. You could also use this to apply your cream shadow or even your powder shadows. The next brush is the 176 small blender brush. I did mention earlier that one of my personal cons in this collection is them not having a brush like this, a fluffier blending brush, but this is also personally one of my favorite brushes because it's very unique. I don't have a blending brush that looks like this. I do have some more specific outer V brushes, but none of them are domed and shaped like this. Now this is actually the brush I use for my outer V and my crease shade. This brush is also good for nose contouring because it's small, but it's dense enough to blend it out. Actually, I think if I tried, I could make an entire eyeshadow look just with this one brush. It's really dense, so you can use this to pack on eyeshadow at the same time to blend your crease color and to deepen your outer V shade. The next brush is actually one of the most surprising brushes in this set, and this is the 177 eyeshadow brush. I'm saying that this surprised me because most of my eyeshadow brushes are a lot stiffer than this one. So I thought this wouldn't pack on eyeshadow on the lid very well, but it did. both with a neutral shade and a more colorful shade. Another extra with this brush is it doesn't stain easily. I think that's because this is a synthetic brush, so the color just slides off when you wash it. Also, because it's so fluffy, I do believe you can use it to blend out your crease shade, but with a certain amount of skill. Still a really good brush. I can think of a lot of ways you can use this, not just for your eyes. The next brush is the 178 pencil eyeshadow brush. This brush doesn't really have much difference with most pencil eyeshadow brushes. It acts in the same way. The plus with this is because it's made with the same bristles as the flat shader brush. This doesn't hold on to pigment. This is what I used to blend the purple underneath my eye, and I just spot clean this, and you can't really see any purple on this. And usually with white bristles, they don't become this clean when you just spot clean them. You need to actually wash them with soap and water. It makes me want to use this more because it won't stain. So the last brush is the 179 eyeliner brush. I've tried other eyeliner brushes I prefer with this, not because it's a bad brush, but because it's fairly dense, so it applies a really thick liner, and for someone like me who has hooded eyes, I do prefer a thinner line. If you do like applying a thick eyeliner on your eye, this will make it easier. Another thing that I don't see other people doing that I discovered by accident, dip the tip of this in eyeshadow and apply that on your lower lash line to make your lower lashes thicker, because it's such a pointed brush. It's like you're really tight lining the lower lashes. Now, it doesn't have to be this brush. That actually works with any eyeliner brush, so that's a tip for you. So honestly, for me, this brush set is worth it, even if I do buy it in the regular price, because I got this for 89 US dollars as a pre-sale. I believe the regular price of this would be $98, and for the quality of these, I think that's honestly worth it. So if any of you already have these brushes and you've already tried them out, feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you've been eyeing these brushes and you're thinking about buying them, I do hope this little review of mine helped you out in deciding whether you're going to get them or not. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to me if you haven't already, and till the next video, bye everyone!